Hello everybody, it be I, Ricky from Driverz Development Team, and today we're going to get into how to find IDs of NFTs stored on a contract. Okay, so everything I'm doing here is absolutely public, so I'm not, and the same thing, if you know what you're doing, then you can go through a Flow project and find out a whole bunch of information about them. So Flow, people building on Flow know from the get-go that everything they're doing is public and transparent and all transactions can be viewed. But of course, in order to do that kind of stuff, I mean, it sounds nice, but in order to do that kind of stuff, you need to have some kind of knowledge of how to interact with the Flow blockchain. And one great tool for running scripts is this website, run.ecdao.org. This is made by the Emerald City DAO. And it allows you to run scripts on the Flow blockchain without having to create a node with JavaScript and run the script and get it all back. So you can just easily go through, create a script, and run it. Now, here we're going to look for the car club IDs because we need to do some airdrops. I'm not going to go through the airdrop process because I'm not sure of the... Well, it's all visible anyways, but I don't want to show you guys the back-end communications between Driverz and myself. But we're going to go through and I'll show you guys here that this script is something that anybody can write, and we'll walk through it real quick. So first thing you're going to do is you're going to import some contracts up at the top, and you need to import the contracts in order to read them down here. We probably don't need the metadata views. Then you're going to create a function main, and it's going to input an address, and it's going to return an array of UN64s, which will be the ID numbers. So first you create this variable account or constant, and it calls this getAccount function, which is native to Cadence, and that inputs the address, and that saves the account information under this account variable. And then from the account, you're going to use the getCapability function and borrow from non-fungible token, which is the contract that we imported up here, .collection public, and then reference to the actual contract that we're using, car club in this case. .collection public path. So it's going to get access to the public path of the address that we're going to put in, and today we're going to use this address right here, because this is where the NFTs are stored. And of course, if you know what you're doing, you could figure out that the NFTs are also stored here. You'd have to use flowscan.org, then find the account address number for the contract, search that account address on flowscan.org, and then run through the transactions to the very first transactions, and you'll see where all of the NFTs were minted in quotation marks, because usually when we think about minting, you think about purchasing an NFT, but the minting process is actually transferring the NFTs or the images from the IPFS server to the account through the contract. So that's actually what minting is. And yeah, so you figure that out by going to flowscan.org, and then you can say, okay, the car clubs are stored at this account address. And we need to get this non-fungible token account address, and I know I have that somewhere here. So that's not actually going to be there, that's going to be here. And what you want to do when you have your projects is definitely set up a get ID folder that has your scripts in there, and it just like quickly allows you to save your get ID scripts, like this one, get Genesis IDs, and this is going to have the non-fungible token contract address in there. So we're going to load that up. We're using Visual Studio, of course. Visual Studio is awesome. It allows you to code in any language. And there's the account address right there. Save this account address. If you have some kind of flow project or non-fungible token project, save this account address so that you can always refer back to it later. And it's the same for metadata views as it is for non-fungible tokens. Okay, so we do that. Then you're going to borrow it, and you have a little panic in here. And then in the mark collector, basically in this collection public path resource interface or resource, I'd have to look at the contract to see what it is. It's most like your resource interface because you can only interact with functions defined in the resource interface when you're on a contract. Otherwise, if you wanted to work with functions that are defined in the actual resource themselves or run any kind of functions against the resource, you probably have to do run of transactions, which means you have to approve it, which means you also have to be the approving party or the person that deployed the contract in order to do that stuff. Okay, so there's a couple barriers you have to go through, and it all revolves around the private key. All right, so inside this collection public path is a function called getIDs. That's what we're going to run today. Make sure you're on the mainnet and then execute script. This is going to run, and it's going to slow your computer down like crazy. No, it usually doesn't take this long. It's only taking so long because I'm live streaming.